Hi, I'm Paul Friedman, founder of the Marriage Foundation, and today's discussion is, can I get him to stop cheating? Welcome back. I'm Paul Friedman, founder of the Marriage Foundation. This is a question that comes to us at the Marriage Foundation quite often. Can I get him to stop cheating? And I'm not going to give you the simple answer. That's not how we do things. Why not? Because I want you to understand your marriage well enough so that you can be in the driver's seat. And yeah, there's a lot of people on YouTube who will give you an answer that is kind of, you'll find it everywhere on YouTube. All the channels, you could read articles and I'll give you the same kind of answer. We're a little bit different. Maybe the reason for that is how I got started in the marriage saving venue. I used to be a divorce mediator up until 2001. At that time, a couple asked me to help them save their marriage instead of end it. And because their marriage was dead on arrival, I saw no reason why not to try. Well, I don't like to do things the way everyone else does. And besides, I'm not a Western psychologist. My knowledge base was basically how to help couples figure out who gets the kids on Wednesdays and Tuesdays and who gets the kids on the weekends, distributing assets. It's pretty technical in some cases, but I wanted to find the technical part of marriage with this couple who asked me. And so I did a deep dive and I began with a question. All solutions begin with questions. Now, your question is, how do I get my husband to stop cheating? Not can I get him to stop cheating, but how do I do it? And there is an answer. And the answer is not a direct answer. You can't demand of him that he stops cheating. You can't confront him. And the reason why I say that is because the human dynamic means that if you say anything that implies that he's cheating, even if he has been caught or has admitted it, he will become defensive. That's human nature. And he'll turn it around. We all know that self-preservation means run and hide or stand and fight. Well, neither of those are going to really help you. And so what we really want to do is we want to find something that will start bringing you to the path of a resurrected marriage. Let me repeat that. The reason you're asking that question, can I stop my husband from cheating, is because not so deep down, you want your marriage to be resurrected. You want the promises of marriage, although they were probably unspoken, but the promises of marriage to take root in your marriage. Because, frankly, it never really did. You see, in our world, we're not taught anything about marriage. And in fact, we hear things that are quite stupid. Let me give you a great example. One of the things that commonly heard is that the wedding day is the happiest day of the bride's life. Well, what does that imply? That implies that from now on, things will just get worse. This is the happiest day. And I know some of you might say, well, happiest day to date. Yeah, but people don't operate on that premise that this is the happiest day of our lives, husband and wife, and from here, it's going to get better. Nobody thinks in those terms. Everyone thinks this is it. And we'll be very fortunate if we could maintain the laughter, the connection, the good times, the romance, the intimacy. Wouldn't it be wonderful? Well, I'm here to tell you that when I started looking into marriage and picking it apart to find the scientific basis upon which we could improve this couple's marriage, I discovered things that blew me away, quite frankly. Well, first, let me tell you what the question was that I asked. I asked the question, why do we get married in the first place? And I was astounded that I had never asked that question before, because it's a really important question. You see, when you answer that question, it sort of sets you up for, okay, how do we achieve that? The reason we get married universally. Now, you might say, well, because I fell in love. Well, sure you did. But we get married because we want happiness. That's why we get married. Now, there's a psychophysiological reason too, and that is to have children. Procreation is part of our physical nature. But the depth of us strives for happiness. Better than happiness, we strive for joy. Now, I'm not going to go religious on you, but it is a spiritual quality, the joy that I'm describing. We seek the joy that is innate in the soul, hence soulmates. So we are seeking that soulmate joy. And what brings happiness universally, without any condition whatsoever, is love. We fell in love. We felt that joy in our heart, not up here. It's not an emotion. Love is not an emotion. And we want to experience that joy for the rest of our lives. No one ever tells us that. No one mentions that. No one discusses that. Instead, even the best intentioned people describe marriage in a very material way. How to behave respectfully, how to be nice, how to take care of one another. And those are all good things. Don't misunderstand me. But it doesn't get to the heart, pun intended, of what marriage is all about. Marriage is about love. That was the premise. Marriage is about love. Now I'm going to take you to the next step. When we understand marriage, we know that marriage is about cultivating that love constantly. Now, let's get a plant, a nice little house plant. It looks so pretty in its little pot. We bring it home and we tenderly cultivate that plant. And it grows and grows and grows, and it bears fruit, flowers, beautiful fragrance maybe, or just beautiful to look at. Marriage is a living thing. And when we cultivate it with love, when we water it with love, tenderness, compassion, understanding, caring, when we cultivate it, but not mechanically, but from the heart, because we fell in love, we have that love, it's within us. And so we manifest that love into our marriage, into our husband, and we let him know on a constant basis, in many ways and in every way, not mundane ways, but deep heart ways. We let him know how much he means, how important he is, not just to you, but what a valuable human being he is, how amazing he is, how special he is. And then what are we doing? We're cultivating that plant called marriage, and it produces the fragrance of harmony and happiness. But you didn't do that. Let's just be honest about this. You didn't do that. In fact, you went the other way. How do I know? I was a divorce mediator. I saw it constantly. When I wrote my very first book, Lessons for Happy Marriage, I wanted people to know what they were doing wrong without being an a-hole about it. I didn't want to create a list and say, you did this wrong, you did that wrong. So what I did was I defined 3 killers of marriage that I had learned from watching people interact who were figuring out who's going to get the car and who's going to get the washing machine. The number one killer of marriage, that is always there, 100% of the time in every marriage that was ending, is what I termed overfamiliarity, which you can almost term it taking each other for granted, not considering one another anymore the way you did when you were first dating. In fact, I use that as example for people who I met with after. I literally discovered these things about marriage, and I started saving people's marriages. Because I spoke at Second Saturday, which is a support group for women at the time and men now who are getting a divorce or contemplating divorce. And I would speak there, and I use those people to, you might say, experiment on, but I don't think it was experimentation at the core. It was experiment like, do I present it this way or that way? And I saved many, many, many marriages. I worked with hundreds and hundreds of people over the course of 8 years before we went live on the internet with our marriage foundation, which is a nonprofit, and we have course. Anyway, in the first book, I laid out the 3 killers of marriage. And that's a nice way of telling you this is what you did wrong. You took your husband for granted. So when you're taken for granted, because he took you for granted too. Let's face it, that's what's going on now in your marriage. Yeah, he's cheating on you, but how did it get there? Well, he wasn't feeling that love, that happiness that he signed up for. You're not either. And sure, what he did was wrong, 100%, unequivocally. What he did was immoral, destructive to you, destructive to his family, destructive to himself. It's destructive. Unfortunately, in our world, the world kind of condones it. There's all these websites that married people could go on and meet other people. There's even simple social media sites where people meet each other. Innocently, I don't think so, because he was already moving away from you. He was already moving away from you. And now you're in a place where you know he's cheating on you. So what does that cheating look like? Because there's forms of cheating. Let's be honest. One form of cheating that is sort of the most, I'll say the word, but I don't feel that way. It's accepted. That men use pornography. And a few women use it too, but not many. It's mostly men. Men use pornography. It's cheating on you. Because what he's doing by doing that is he's seeking release of his tensions. He needs to be comforted, and he's not getting it from you. It's not your fault. Not your fault. You're betraying each other, you might say. And so men go to pornography. Thank God he's not having sex with someone else at that stage. The next stage, you might say, is when he's starting to develop an emotional affair with somebody, becoming friends with another woman. And it could happen in many different ways. It could happen where he's at work and he's getting along with one of his coworkers. It could happen that he was attracted to someone on social media. It could be that he was seeking it out. I have heard that these porn sites offer connections. I haven't seen it myself, but I've heard it. And so what happens is he meets somebody, might be an AI somebody. It might not be even someone who exists, or it could be some bearded guy sitting in his mother's basement somewhere pretending to be a woman. Who knows? The point is that he's cheating on you with that. The world sort of condones it, says it's okay. It's not okay. It's self-destructive. It's hurting you. It's hurting the family. And then the next stage, which is pretty bad, is when he is having affairs. Affairs or an affair. And that's what most women come to us with. My husband is having an affair with so-and-so. She's such and such. Oftentimes she's younger. Oftentimes she has more to offer because she's not having to take care of the kids and stuff like that. And she's taking care of his needs. Well, even then, and here's the good news, the marriage is far from over. It's not over. When he moves out, and I have to share this with you, even if he moves out, it's not over. Way back in early 2000s, I was working with everybody, and this one woman called me up. I was in San Diego County in California, and a woman called me up from New Haven, Connecticut. She was a professor at Yale, and so was her husband. And she asked me, can I help her save her marriage? She had heard about me through the grapevine, let's say. And I said, I don't know. However, if you're willing, I'm willing to give you the guidance based on what I know works and what doesn't work, and we'll take it step by step, and we'll see what happens. And she said, well, my husband is now moved in with one of his students. Oh, okay. I'm not going to give up if you don't. And so what we did was, actually we did it by email. I don't like to get on the phone with people. We did it by email. And over a period of time, she started to see how she chased her husband away. Now, I don't really see it as she chased her husband away. They both misbehaved, but she didn't make their home comfortable for him. She didn't give him what he truly needed, which I know a lot of people think it's more sex or, playing games in the bedroom and stuff like that, but that's not at all what it is. It's the sense of love, you see? And this is an advantage you have as a woman, that you have to learn how to introduce it back into your marriage so that your husband is drawn to you. Now, what do? Can you get your husband to stop cheating? Let's go back to the question. And the answer is not directly. Not directly. Now, let me give you an example. You want to heat the soup. You turn on the flame. That's not heating the soup, that's turning on the flame, and the flame is heating the soup. You see, there are steps. And this is how I broke marriage down into the distinguishable steps that end up creating the dynamic that your husband is missing in the marriage. If you try to hold his feet to the fire, as some suggest, set boundaries, as some suggest. In other words, if you confront him, as some suggest, well, I mentioned this earlier in the video, what is he going to do? He's either going to run away or fight you. Fight or fly. We know that. And this is a mechanical attribute of the drive to survive, of self-preservation. And you can count on it. So you have to avoid that direction. But you can use the tools of self-change. I'm going to have to get into this a little bit so you understand. Now, you are who you are. And who you are is what determines how you will behave. If you were to stop and introspect and take a look at the habits that you have in your mind, the habits of reaction, which you never look at. You never go, oh, I didn't know I did that. You would be shocked. You would go, I'm I don't see myself as this kind of person. In other words, if you stood back and you dispassionately looked at yourself as you behave, your behaviors, you might literally be disgusted. Almost everyone is. And so what we need to do at this stage where you are now is we need to step back. We need to do a few things. One, you need to learn about marriage. Now, some people want to save some money, so they get one of my books, because one of my books, it lays out marriage so well. The first one's called Lessons for a Happy Marriage, and it kind of lays out how to proceed, but not in deep detail. The other book that I have is Breaking the Cycle. I actually created that book so I could teach marriage counselors who were raised in the Western psychological modalities how to really be a marriage counselor, meaning how they can help their clients actually turn their marriage around. Because my marriage counselor friends who used to send me business started to send me a different kind of business later on as I was teaching them some of the principles. And then in the Marriage Foundation, we now have our own marriage counselors who I have trained, who understand all of our principles and make it happen. By the time we got to 2009, one of my fellow divorce mediators, who used to be a Navy SEAL, by the way, I know that's not a big thing for you as a woman, but for a man, it's cool, great lawyer, and he said, Paul, this stuff is amazing, and he wrote out a check for $1,000, and he said, let's go visit a friend of mine who creates corporations and let's do a nonprofit and get the word out. And that's what we did. And then a family friend, actually a friend of my son, helped me develop an online course, a 12-week course, one for women and one for men, because it's a very separate way to handle things. And we've been very successful in saving marriages, thousands of them. Do we have failures? Occasionally. So what I want you to do is this. Because there is a 3-day free trial period, I want you to try it. Now, we also have a free course that you could take, a 10-day course. It's free, and so you get a sense of where I'm going if you haven't already gotten that sense. And so we could start getting you on the right path to healing your marriage. And that's how you get your husband to stop cheating on you. But that's not enough. I don't want him to just stop cheating on you, nor do you. What we both want is for your marriage to be reconstituted and in the right, correct way that brings happiness and harmony and love in so much abundance that a year from now, you're not even going to remember this cheating on your business. That's where we're going with all this. Wow. You know, I do these videos off the cuff, so they're always different. And to be honest with you, they oftentimes surprise me too. If you want to watch these videos, then subscribe so they show up in your feed and like that. And share this if you want with a friend who may be going through the same thing. It often happens. And like the video, of course, and also leave a comment. And if you want me to help you with your situation, put it in the comment section and I'll respond to that. If you want to, you go to our website and you could write to one of our marriage counselors who are fully trained in these principles, and they'll help guide you a little bit too. So I'm so glad you stopped by. I know this has helped you if you've been paying attention. A lot of people watch these videos 2, maybe 3, 4 times and take notes. So I'm Paul Friedman. I founded the Marriage Foundation. I discovered all this stuff. I'm a happy person, happily married, and I want you to be also. God bless you. Thank you. Take care.